Hi everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my craft room. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Just hit that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free to be part of my crafty family here on YouTube. Today's video, we are going to learn how to screen print on wood. This is a fun way to do a stenciling technique without some of the extra work that stenciling really takes. This is a super fun thing to do. You can do this with lots of different types of wood and colors and be very super creative with it. So I'm going to show you how to use two colors to make this design. You'll need a few supplies for this that you may not already have, but you can get them on Amazon. I'll link everything that I'm using down below for you. The first thing that you'll need is some vinyl and some sort of craft cutter. I used the Cricut for this, but you can use any of the craft cutters that you might have. You're also going to need some paint. I use Speedball acrylic paint, again, linked down below from Amazon. You'll need some sort of a scoop or a spoon. I like to use a reusable one so I can just wash it. You will also need a squeegee. I like to use these larger ones from Speedball. They work a little bit better when it comes to making screen prints than using the smaller ones if you're doing a large design. And then you are also going to need a screen. So these are great. They come in a ton of different sizes. This, I believe, is the 12 by 10 size, and this size has been pretty good for me. That clearly just fell, but that's okay. This is really super easy to grab, and you can change out the screen. So if you have any damage to your screen or you want to do reusable screens, I have a video for that. I'll link below for you guys as well. And then I just used some wood from Michaels, and this is super easy. It came out really cute, and then the design is from crafty.net. I'm going to show you how to use some registration marks to make sure you get everything lined up, and we're going to have a really fun time making our cute little sign. So let's get started.
Whatever we would do, we do it just for fun.
We are going to be using a file from crafty.net, so I'll show you guys how to upload it. All you're going to do is click upload and then click upload image and click browse. You're going to find the folder that you saved it in, and I'm doing kind of a patriotic rainbow thing that I found, and I thought it was super cute, so I put it under my patriotic designs, and it's right here, Land of the Free SVG. Select that and it will bring it into your Cricut design space. Now this is set up as a SVG already, so I don't need to do anything to it other than to just click upload. I'm going to select it from my recent uploads and add it to my canvas. Once you have that into your Cricut design space, you can actually resize it. So I'm using a 10 by 10 board, and I know that my screen can only go to about 9, and I don't want it to take up my whole board anyways, so I think I kind of want to make it about 8 inches, maybe just about 8. I think that's good, about 7 tall. I think that'll be a really good size. Plus, we need to leave a little bit of room for some registration marks. It's going to make it a lot easier to get this all centered and the way we want it by using registration marks. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a little shape, and I just like to use a square, and I kind of turn it into a rectangle. A square just works a lot better for me personally, but you can use a star, a circle, whatever you like and whatever works best for you. So what you'll need to do, I'm going to go ahead and unlock my square, and I'm just going to make it a lot smaller. You don't need a big registration mark, but something that will stand out. And I like to put them in a couple spots. So I'm going to put one down here by America. Then I want to duplicate it. Because this design's pretty large, I'm going to put one up here, kind of up in this upper corner. And then I think I'll put another one over there. So I'm going to duplicate again. And I'm going to put one over here. These do not have to be straight or even or anything, because you're going to line them up so it won't really necessarily matter. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Like, that's going to be an easy way to line this all up. Now, the key to this is that you need 2 sets of these squares, because you have to have a set for each of the colors. So if you're doing 4 colors, you need 4 sets. If you're doing 6 colors, you need 6 sets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each of my squares. I am then going to click the word attach. Then what I want to do is duplicate. Now what attach does is it holds everything in the exact same spot. Once you have both sets of the attached squares, what I want to do is I'm going to select both sets of attached items over in my layers panel. Using our align tool, you're going to align them, and you want to center them. That's going to align everything up so that it's all within each other. That's super important that these squares are exactly aligned. If they're not, your registration marks won't help you line up your design. Now, we need to attach the squares to one color of the rainbow, but it's really important that we ungroup the rainbow before we do anything else. If you were to try to attach it while it's grouped, everything will attach, and we definitely don't want to do that because we need two separate colors. Go ahead and choose an attach version of our squares. So you should have 4 squares, and right here it'll say attach, and then choose one of the colors of the rainbow. Then simply click attach. You'll see that some of our squares have now turned red, and they're part of our red rainbow. Do the same thing for that next set of squares and attach them to our blue. And go ahead and click attach. Now what you'll see when I move them apart is each one of these has a set of 4 squares. So it's really easy. That's just making it a lot easier for us to line this up once it's on our blank, our board. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to double check the sizing. It looks pretty good. I think it'll be just fine. And we're going to turn it sideways on our screen so that we have a little more space. Everything looks good to go. But because we are using this as a stencil on a screen print, we actually need to mirror our design. Now, I always forget to mirror after I hit make it. So what I like to do is I select my entire design and I just flip it horizontally on my canvas. That way I don't forget to flip it when I go to do it over here after I hit make it. I just tend to forget. And sometimes Cricut Design Space is a little bit nuts and it doesn't always mirror your project even though you tell it to. But this way, I've never had a problem. Now all we have to do is click make it, and I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So we're using the Cricut Maker 3, but we want to cut this on matte, so click continue. Now, the one thing that I do want to do is I'm going to move this down and over a little bit. I want a little bit of vinyl up at the top and on each side for our screen print. That way we have a little bit of leeway between the edge of the vinyl and where we're stenciling. I'm going to do the same thing over here for our red. I'm just going to move it up or down and over just a little. You don't have to do a lot, but just that little extra, maybe like inch or so, is super duper helpful. Now, I'm just going to cut this on some random vinyl, probably just use StarCraft HD. When doing stenciling, it really doesn't matter what color you cut your vinyl in, or if you're using stencil vinyl, up to you. But what I will note is that if you're using registration marks, for example, I'm going to use blue painter's tape. So I wouldn't want to cut my design to make it hard for me to see the color of the paint against the painter's tape. So we're going to start using the red first because the red is going to show against blue painter's tape, where blue paint is going to blend pretty easy. So you'll definitely want to do the red first. Doesn't matter which order they cut in, but it will matter which order we put the stencil on. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut out. I'll show you guys getting them cut and weeded, and then we can apply this to our screen and get ready to stencil and do some screen printing on wood. So I'm going to just use some bright colors. I've got a lavender and like a hot pink color, and these will work perfectly. So I'm going to use this one for our blue section because this will be easier to see the red through it, and then I'll use this one for our red portion. So I'm going to put that to the side because blue is going to cut first. So I'm just going to load my vinyl here onto my mat and lay that out. And then we'll go ahead and load this. This again just cuts on the regular vinyl setting. You don't need to do anything special to it. We'll go ahead and load it. I'm going to let it cut out both of these, and then I'll give you guys some tips on weeding. So we're ready to weed these, and the thing is, when weeding for a stencil, you don't want to weed out the background. You want to weed where you want the paint to go through. So same thing for screen printing. It's just another version of stenciling. So you want to remove where you want the paint to go through. So what I'm going to do first is find the beginning of my rainbow, so like that first little inside loop, and then I can see my registration marks, so I'll kind of pull those. And you'll note that I didn't cut this off of the main backing yet, because I just wanted to make sure that I have enough space around my design to cut out my edges. So we'll go ahead and get this all weeded, and like I said, you're just going to weed the parts that you want the paint to go through. So I've cut them out of the main piece of vinyl just to size them down a little bit. What we need to do now is put transfer tape on them. So this one is going to be our blue layer, and then this one is our red layer. I want to start with the red layer first because I want to be able to see the red paint against the blue painter's tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm using some medium tack transfer tape. This is Style Tack. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to unroll some. Sorry, I know that's a little bit loud. And I'm going to stick it to my table. And I'm going to do this a couple times. I just want to have a slightly less sticky transfer tape. So this helps make it a little less sticky. It helps to have less sticky tape because this doesn't really love sticking to the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this out onto my transfer tape. And then I'm going to use a squeegee. Let's go ahead and trim this off of our transfer tape. And then all I'm going to do is just burnish it from the back with a squeegee. So you want to kind of burnish it pretty well. You don't have to go too crazy, but you definitely want to get and make sure that you kind of go over exactly where your design is. The next thing that we're going to need is our screen. Now this is a Speedball screen that I got from Amazon. I'm going to link everything that we're using down below. With the screen, we are going to put the vinyl onto it. So what I want to do is I'm going to grab this vinyl and I want to peel the backing off of our vinyl. And make sure that everything stays stuck to your vinyl. There we go, perfect. Nothing too crazy. And then I'm gonna take my screen and I wanna place it down onto my vinyl. But what you'll notice is this is just like a picture frame. So there is a flat side and then there is the frame side. You want the flat side down to your vinyl because this is gonna be how we press it on here. And there was a bubble in the transfer tape. So that's what you just heard was that bubble coming out. So what I'm doing now is I'm burnishing my vinyl to my screen. Now this is fabric, so it doesn't really love to stick to permanent vinyl, and that's okay. It's not supposed to, but we are going to create this screen print by doing this. So I know that noise is kind of awful, but what we'll do now is flip this over. Find a corner of your transfer tape, and I like to try to find a piece that is not off the edge, and it does tend to really like to stick to the screen. The transfer tape really loves the screen, the vinyl not as much. So I'll find a part that'll come up, and then what we're gonna do is just gently, and you'll see that I have this at a really sharp angle, is peel back our transfer tape from our vinyl. You're gonna go slow because you wanna make sure that this all stays down. And I do like to hold on to my vinyl as I do this, just to be sure that it doesn't pull up. You'll wanna watch all those centers of your letters to make sure that they are staying down as well. It's really important that those letter centers, see the A came up, that those letter centers stay down. If they don't, you can just repress them down and they should stay the second time. All right, we've got that done. So we'll go ahead and put this off to the side. Now what I want you to do is flip your screen back over, and we are gonna burnish this down again because peeling up that transfer tape can actually produce bubbles all along the edges of your design. So it's really important that you press it back down to make sure that it's well held down. Now, before I put any painter's tape on the back to protect my design, I just wanna do a quick dry fit on my board. This board is from Michaels, and it came with the pre-hanger and all that. So make sure you have this the right direction. And then I'm just gonna do a little quick, pre-fit on my board just to see where I want it to sit and kind of get an idea of where these little registration marks are gonna be. I'm gonna move it over a little. So you just kind of figure out where you want this to be on your board. And then what you're gonna do is take your painter's tape and stick it on to your board. You wanna make sure that where you place it down doesn't interfere with any of the actual design. And like you'll see they're bigger than they need to be, and I do that on purpose so that I have a little bit of wiggle room when I lay down my design. I think that looks pretty good for that bottom one. He looks fine. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place the one up here. Again, I just sort of guesstimate about where it needs to sit, and then I can always move it if it's in the wrong spot. So like you can see here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a little bit of blue sticking through right where I put that, so I will reduce that. I will rip it off. But I just need to make sure that this is sitting where I want it to sit and that it is straight. So what I'm kind of trying to do is line up the top of my screen with the top of the board, because that seems to be about even and straight. So I do need to rip off a little bit of the painter's tape for this guy, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. We just make them a little bit bigger, and I'd rather have to rip off some of it than to have to restart. So we'll just double check, make sure that none of that sits on our rainbow. Yep, I think that's pretty good. I need to move it over a little bit, but other than that, okay. So now we just need to do these next two. And like I said, this part is a little bit time consuming. So you'll want to take your time, make sure that you get this straight, make sure you get it where you want it, all of that. And like I said, I just guesstimate about where these are going to sit. You can always move it. It's just painter's tape. Not the end of the world if it's a little bit off, but that one actually looks like it's perfect. Oh, nope, there's a little bit sitting in the star, so I need to move it over a little. That's the one thing. It is tough because these are such large designs as well. So just keep moving it around, figure out where it goes. Make sure they're still good every time you do it. Every time you get everything lined up. Oops, and then slide off. Okay, and we'll do this last piece. I think goes right about here. I think that one's going to be way too big. I think it might go under the rainbow. Nope, actually it didn't. That's good. Okay, so now that we have those set, we are good to go on that. We need to take some painter's tape and cover the edges of our design because the paint can seep through. So what you want to do is rip off some painter's tape and run it across the screen. You want to go the whole way across, and you want to make sure that any spots where paint can get through, so there's like a little corner right here I missed, so I'll just use the leftover paint there. You just want to make sure everything is covered without covering anywhere the paint needs to go through. So you want to just be aware of that. So anywhere that we have our design or our registration marks, we don't want tape. So like right here where that A is, I need to rip a slightly smaller piece because I don't want any of my paint to get blocked from going there. We'll get this other side. This side's already covered, so I'm not worried about it, but we will get this side. And sometimes just to be safe, because I get a little bit nervous, I'm going to go ahead and put a little piece of painter's tape over that as well, just to be extra cautious. One time I didn't, and I was really regretful of it. So once that is all done, go ahead and flip it over. You want to get it all lined up on your board. Now this part is a little harder because you can't see through your board to see where you have everything angled and straight. So you can use your fingers to feel where the top of the original board is, so the board that you're putting it on. So I'm just kind of using my fingers to feel. That looks pretty good. I think that is about where I want it to be. There's a little bit of pet hair on there we need to get off. But other than that, that's about where I want it to go. Now I always have paper towels handy. Extra, cleaning supplies. Always, always, always have extra cleaning supplies handy. Baby wipes are a must-have in my book when I am doing screen printing. I am 9 times out of 10 going to get ink somewhere that I don't want it. The paper towel I use over here is to hold any of like the dirty stuff, and then we're going to start with red. This is acrylic Speedball ink. You want to make sure you're using the acrylic and not the t-shirt. So on the label, you'll see here there's a little like paper. On the t-shirt ones, it will be a little shirt. So you want to make sure you're using acrylic ink for this. And this is the color medium red. I'm a little worried this is going to be a little bit orangey, but we'll find out. It's not too bad. It looks pretty red. So what you'll do is get a scooper or a spoon. I like to use this reusable scooper. I don't have to throw out the scooper. I can just wash it. And this is one that I keep in my craft room. And I did just bump that, so I just want to be very careful that I didn't get this off center. So I'm just going to double check. I think I did. I think it bumped it a little bit. Okay. There we go. That feels better. Okay. So what I want to do now is take some ink, and I want to spread it all the way across the design. I want to make sure that I do cover the edges here with the registration marks. So you just want to make sure you go all the way across. This doesn't take a ton of ink, but I do like to be a little bit generous with my ink so that I don't miss any spots. I'm going to tap off the excess, or at least as much of the excess as I can get off of this, and then kind of wipe the edges and place this on to my paper towel. The next thing you need is a squeegee. I like to use this large squeegee, and it has 2 different sides. It has one side for graphic and one side for fabric. The graphic side's a little bit harder. We want to use the graphic side. What you're going to do is hold your screen down. And I will hold it down with one hand, and you're going to pull straight down at an angle with your paint. Then what I usually do is I'll tap off some of that excess a little bit. And don't worry, we'll come back and clean up all the excess paint. And then I want to come down this side. Now I will say I am typically a person that ends up with not a great press on this side because of the way I have my hand angled. So I will tend to make sure to press extra hard and go through that. But you don't have to press super hard when doing this. You just need to make sure that your screen doesn't move. Then I'm going to take the excess ink, as much of it as I can, and get it back into the jar. I just kind of get it onto the squeegee, and then I put it back in the jar. But you just want to kind of make sure you get as much ink as you can. Once you've got most of it off, it's not a big deal. You can go in, if it's not on the image, and I'll go in with the little spoon and spoon a lot of it off so it's less messy. This is just my personal thing. You don't have to necessarily do this. I just find this makes a little bit less of a mess when I go to clean, because we will need to clean this between our colors. I don't have a second screen, so I have to let it dry and clean it. Now what you're gonna do is, I like to stick my hands under my press, under my screen, and just lift straight up, and voila! We have our first part of our design. Now, when we go to wash our screen, I don't have a camera in my kitchen. So all you need to do is use some cool to lukewarm water and just rinse your screen really, really well. That's gonna cause the vinyl to come off. You'll get the painter's tape off. You're gonna need to let your screen dry completely, and you're gonna want to let your paint dry completely as well. Then once everything is nice and dry, we can come in with our second color. I've let everything dry for a couple of hours just to be sure it was all dry, and we're gonna get some more transfer tape out. This whole step is the same way that we did the first section. So again, I stick it down to my table a couple of times, just so that it's a little less sticky. Take my vinyl and I put it on my transfer tape. I go ahead and I cut this down. Squeegee. You want to burnish this. Again, you want to make sure you burnish this really well. And this one has all the small pieces and parts, so it's got all the little bit of writing on here. So for that, we just want to make sure that we do go over it really well. And to make sure that I do that, I will typically flip stuff like this that has the smaller pieces and just do a quick run over of all those little spots, especially like these little stars, just to make sure that everything is well held down. Then again, I'm going to go ahead and peel the backing off. And for this one, we're going to make sure that we go extra slow, because we want to make sure all those little pieces stay down. You don't want to lose the center of an A, which is what happened the first time that I made this a few months ago. I lost the A in Brave, and I was like, no! So I had to recut it. It was kind of a pain, but it really came out cute. I made this for a door hanger for a friend, so it came out super cute. So then again, screen is dry. The frame is just a little damp, but it's not so damp that it's going to make a difference. Move my scissors out of the way. And again, we'll just lay the frame right down. And I do try to get it fairly straight when I put this on, just so that it's not so hard to get it straight on to our board. But this one won't matter as much because we do have the registration marks. So just like last time, I'm going to go through. I'm going to give it nice burnish all the way around, going in all of the directions. Again, making sure to really hit on the words and the stars. And then I'm going to flip it over, grab that transfer tape, and just gently peel. And again, this one, again, take your time. You don't want to lose these little centers of the letters. You don't want to lose those stars. So just take your time. It's not a race. You want to make sure your projects come out beautiful every time. So just take your time, be patient. I think a lot of crafting is learning patience. I know we all want to see our beautiful projects finished, but sometimes you just need to take your time. So we go ahead and get this peeled off. And then we will burnish it from the front again. So again, we need to get out the painter's tape, again, to block off any spots that the paint might go through. So just grab some painter's tape and get to taping off all of your edges. All right, once I'm confident that's all covered, I do tend to sometimes give it just another squeegee, just this direction. So let's bring our piece of wood back in. So it's all dry, came out really, really cute. Get that so you can see it. Now what we need to do, and before I do anything else, I'm gonna set this right there, it'll be fine. I gotta open my paint. I like to make sure that my paint is open before I do anything else. So I'm using, again, this is the screen print, the acrylic ink. This is, I think this one's just called Ultra Blue. Yep, Ultra Blue. Really, really pretty blue. It's gonna be super duper blue. I've got my little measuring spoon. I've got my squeegee. Everything has been washed. Again, you just wash it under lukewarm water. It does great. It's perfect. So now what I'm gonna do, and this is why I'm using the red first, was so that I could get the blue lined up a lot easier, because blue paint with blue painter's tape would be a mess. Now, one thing I do notice, and I'm gonna have to fix, so these are pretty big, these painter's tape blobs here, so I need to actually rip them down a bit because they're too big. They are actually under part of my design. So I'm gonna need to kind of trim it off, and I'm gonna try to get it as close as I can to the square because they are just a little large up here. I didn't plan that one out as well as I had wanted. Oops. But that's okay. It's easy to fix. Just simply kind of peel up a corner of your tape, and then when you get right to where that square is, you're just going to rip your tape across. You can use your finger to kind of help guide it, and then you can pull it off. Now, the bottom ones didn't seem to be a problem, but we'll double check. That's why I think this is going to be a super easy one to line up, because the red shows through so well that it just makes it super easy to see what you're doing. And I don't see any more blue paint or blue tape under my design, so I'm good to go. I'm just kind of looking, making sure. I want to always just double check, but I think it looks really lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with my scooper. Got way too much paint on that. And I'm going to hold this down with my hand right now, just so it doesn't scoot. And that way I don't bump it like I did last time. And I just don't want it to move while I'm kind of tapping the paint onto it. And again, this really doesn't take a ton of paint. I like to just make sure I have a good amount across the whole design. Now this time you don't have to worry so much about covering up the registration marks. You don't have to worry about that at all. You just want to make sure that you cover your entire design. So I'm going to go ahead and hold my screen print down. I moved it just a little. All right, looks good. Doesn't look like it moved. And I'm just going to pull down and pull down. And I want to make sure that I get a good coverage. And then once I'm happy with that, again, same thing. I take as much of the extra ink as I can. And I'm just going to gently pull across and get all that ink off. And once I'm pretty satisfied with how much ink I have off, I'm just going to lift this straight up. And we have a gorgeous design. Now, I didn't get as much paint over here as I would have liked. It's okay, not a big deal. I can come in with a little tiny brush and just kind of brush that and fix it, or I can just kind of leave it as is, but I think this came out really cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this dry for a little bit, and like I said, you don't have to worry so much about getting the registration lines. You see these ones came out really good. I didn't get enough ink on this side. It's okay. Like I said, I can go back through and fix it, but everything else looks really good. So I'll go ahead and let this dry up, and then we will show you what the final product looks like. This is the finished sign. Now, I did let this dry for about 2 days just to be safe, and it came out really, really cool. Now, some of the variegation that you see in, like, the color is caused by the wood beneath. It is kind of grained. You can see there's a knot in it, but this is such a fun way to use screen printing. Now, remember, you do need to use the acrylic screen print ink and not the ones for fabric, but I've linked everything down below to make it super easy for you to do this craft. This is super fun, super easy, and it's a great way to use stencil type of techniques with screen print. If you have any questions, please let me know in those comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you as part of my crafty family. And as always, happy crafting!